We're starting at about 8:32. I welcome you all to the August meeting of the UEN Education Advisory Council. That is I think that's our new name. That's been officially put there as the Education Advisory Council. And appreciate you taking your time this morning to be with us. I'd like to begin this morning first with an introduction of our new Executive Director and CEO, Spencer Jenkins, who took over, I guess, early in July. So you've got a few weeks under your belt. But we'll let Spencer introduce himself, and then I thought it would be nice to reciprocate and have everyone introduce themselves so that he knows some of the constituent groups and who is representing them. So Spencer, I'll give some time to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Rick. Good morning. Rick, it's good to see you. It's always nice to be in a meeting with Rick Gaisford. You and I have intermittently crossed paths over the years, so this is great. Happy to be here. I think I'm finishing my third week, maybe it's the fourth week on the job, but still learning quite a bit from the inner workings of Uetn. So I appreciate the support of a lot of staff kind of hand-holding me along. But I come from the Utah system of higher education. I was there for 10 years, primarily doing legislative affairs, but mixed in with student affairs, a little bit with our academic folks, IT, even with our COVID task force. So it's nice to get over into more of a technical arena and hopefully a slightly less political one. Before I was at USHE, I did spend a few years up at the state's Department of Technology Services, both as their PIO and then later on as a director in their GIS shop. And so I've some limited experience in technology and project management types of things, and then a little more in education and a lot in government and politics. So I'm a bit of a hack, I guess, at the end of the day. I'm excited. I think UETN's at a coming out of this COVID season. I guess there's a new normal for education technology. I think for UETN that they've been adjusting to, and some things to look forward to in the future here. And so I think it's a great opportunity and a great time to be a part of UETN. So with that, I'll stop, and happy to take questions, or I'd just love to hear get introduced to other people. So thanks.
Thank you, Spencer, and we're glad to have you with us, and your new perspectives and your background that you'll be able to bring to the organization. And that, does anyone have any quick questions that they might have for Spencer? Since he opened it up, I'll jump on that, see if there's anybody that has any questions. They're a nice crowd. So just again, we'll go ahead and just do introductions. And I'm assuming, Spencer, you know all the staff people, but so you probably know all the staff people. So
if not, I should be able to track them down. So either it's on me to go find them and get acquainted, or hopefully I'll run into them. But yeah, we can go ahead with everyone else. Thanks.
And you've obviously, our paths have crossed already, as you know, as you mentioned in that. But I'm Rick Gaisford, the Education Technology Specialist, working with the Digital Teaching and Learning Program at the State Board of Education, and I've been on the Advisory Council since its inception, and then the Advisory Council that predated this Advisory Council. And it's one of my favorite parts of my job is to be able to interact with UEN and the great staff that's there and all the great work that gets done. It makes my job so much easier. And of course, as I have the opportunity to speak with colleagues in that across the country, rarely does it not happen that I don't talk about UEN and all the great things that it provides for Utah, and they're all jealous. So, Clint, let's have you I'll just call out because I don't know how, instead of just leaving it open, I'll just go through and call on people to introduce themselves as I go across how it's arranged on my screen.
Clint Stevens. I'm a technology integration specialist at Southwest Educational Development Center. It's a regional service agency in Cedar City, Utah. We help districts from Millard, Washington, Iron, Beaver, Garfield, and Kane with, I do technology training with them, and we have network specialists, system specialists, media specialists, autism folks, behavioral folks, and things like that. I represent the Content Forum, the statewide technology trainer group. And just to address the elephant in the room, I'm fine. Dealt with pneumonia over a month ago, and that led to, I found out this week, I was in the hospital Monday and Tuesday, but that led to some blood clots in the lungs, which led to a little mild heart damage, but I am on the mend. It's going to be slow recovery, but I'm fine.
Well, our thoughts are with you, Clint.
Thanks.
Scott.
I'm Scott McCombs. I'm the Director of IT for Canyons School District. I represent the other directors of IT, and happy to be part of this group. I always learn a lot from the members and from UETN, and appreciative of the great partner that UETN is to us in public education, for sure.
Thank you, Scott. Dina.
Hi, I'm Diana Simmons. I'm with BYU Broadcasting, and I represent public media on the council.
Thank you. Tom.
Hey, Spencer. Howdy, everybody. Good to see everybody. I'm Tom Cheatham. I'm at the University of Utah, professor of medicinal chemistry, also director of our high performance computing center, and I'm on the advisory council representing research.
Tony.
Good morning, Spencer. Great to connect with you. Rick, I didn't know there was going to be a background competition. Il Duomo di Firenze. Come on.
Okay. All right, you win.
I'm sorry. Tony Pellegrini, Department Chair of Teacher Education down here at SUU, and represent teachers across the state who love UEN and all the work.
Thank you much. Brad.
Brad Welch, COO of Centricom in Fairview, Utah, and I represent the rural telecom providers in the state. And good to meet you.
Thank you, Brad. Oliver.
Good morning, Spencer. Nice to meet you and see the group again. My name is Oliver Snow. I'm the Executive Director of WSU Online at Weber State University, and I'm here representing the Canvas admins and distance learning.
Thank you. Mark.
Morning. I'm a graphic designer with UEN, and I'm just here. Good to be here this morning. Thanks.
Well, that's good to meet you, Mark. I don't think we've met before. That's probably why I called your name out, because I didn't recognize you as UEN staff. Sorry.
No problem.
Jason.
Hi, good morning. I'm Jason Hill. I work at Utah Valley University. I'm the Director of Learning Systems, and I'm here representing UTTC.
Do appreciate that, Jason. And Tiffany Hall, and I know you've got low bandwidth, so there's no video, but we'll let you introduce yourself.
No, hi, I'm Tiffany Hall. Sorry, I'm on the road. This is I'm Salt Lake City School District, our last 3-day weekend, or I'm sorry, 4-day work week of the summer. And so I'm heading down to take care of my parents' technology in Cedar City. So Clint, I might just be giving them your phone number. And if you could just ask them to not get into any disputes with Apple again, that would be great. So I represent kind of the curriculum and professional development side, and everything, Spencer, you said at the beginning about now I'm supposed to say UETN, is absolutely the truth. I came from California, and when I discovered UEN 18 years ago, I thought, my goodness, I am so jealous that we never had anything like this when I was teaching in California. So I'm just glad to be here. Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Thanks. Thanks, Tiffany. Spencer, do you have any questions of any of them?
Oh, I'm sure I could come up with dozens of questions, but that'd be a waste of time for y'all. So I'm sure hopefully I get a chance to interact with you on a more individual basis down the road here. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you all for taking time to do introductions and that. Our first item of business is minutes. We do have the minutes from our meeting on June 3rd. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to look those over, but I would accept a motion to approve the minutes of June 3rd.
I second the motion.
And then all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Thank you. Our next discussion, our first discussion item is just a list of members of the council. We do have a few that few positions that still need to be filled. Laura, anything that you wanted to add to this?
Oh, thanks, and good morning, everybody. No, there's a few positions that we want to be filled, and we're live streaming, and so I want to be careful that we're not talking about individuals in a public forum. But if you have recommendations of people that you think would be good to fill those positions, Rick is happy to get your email or your call.
Yes. So we do have open positions for the charter school, a charter school administrator, an IT security professional, and someone representing higher education. I'm not exactly sure which position that one is. Laura, can you enlighten me on that one?
Sure. I think it's like Oliver's somebody that represents Canvas admins and distance learning professionals. And I see that Leslie also joined. Leslie represents the academic libraries, and she's the vice chair of this council. So you could also contact her if you have recommendations for people to fill those positions.
And yes, I just noticed that too, Leslie, that you joined. If you just maybe take a moment for Spencer's and that to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, sorry I'm late. Leslie Baker, I'm the director of the Fulton Library at UVU, and I represent the Utah Academic Library Consortium. So I think I've met with you before, Spencer, in that capacity. So
yeah, it's been a few years. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Well, we'll move on to our next item, 2.2, the legislative session. It seems like we just barely finished, and it's already time to be gearing up for the next one. And I'm going to, Laura, is this one yours as well?
Thanks. I think actually Spencer was going to.
Spencer's going to take this one. Okay.
No pressure, right? I think this is just to introduce, at least at a very high level, some of our priorities, right, Laura? Just to make sure you all know these aren't hard and fast, because we'll be developing these over the next month or so with the board and with the governor's office. But we at least wanted to walk through a few items just so you're aware of them. And if you have questions, and also as you start interacting with your leadership on particular needs, there may be some potential overlap or partnership. But a couple things just to touch on. The first one is, I think, a big chunk of what was funded last session. There was $19.5 million in ARPA funds appropriated to UETN. The legislature appropriated it, but the feds haven't quite approved it yet. And so we're working with the governor's office and eagerly awaiting as those applications or grant submissions are sent to the Treasury, those responses. So we're hopeful in the next, I don't know, we keep saying a few weeks, but who knows, in the next month or so. But we've got that on our list in the event that's for some reason it still hasn't come through by the time the 2023 legislative session comes through. And I noticed Lisa just jumped on, and I'm sure she'll be watching that really closely as we get closer to the session. A couple other things we'll be working on is in the network growth and operations area. Obviously some equipment refresh and updating. That's kind of a typical request we'll have. One of the things I'd like to try and look into is historically UETN's gone for one-time funding for this or ongoing funding, but oftentimes it comes as one time. And I'd like to start a discussion with the legislature to try and find a way to go for some ongoing funding that also accounts for the network growth, maybe along the lines of a WPU-like kind of formula. Obviously at a much smaller dollar amount, but something that, you know, it's a lot like they do with facilities and operations and maintenance. They kind of build in a formula that accounts for the ongoing maintenance of physical facilities. We'd like to look into something similar potentially for network, being that it's a pretty well proven model, at least in the history of UETN, that the demand and the increased growth isn't really going to go away. It's just going to continue to increase and for good use. So that's a policy conversation we hope to start. I don't know if that'll take hold this legislative session or not, but at least as we ask for funding, and we'd like to talk a little more about that with legislative leadership. Another kind of related conversation we want to have is related to software. And Laura, feel free to jump on this, but the UETN, especially in recent years, has taken on a role with enterprise software licensing in a much more central way on behalf of education. And there are some ongoing costs as those licenses come up for renewal. And so that'll be a request we'll be making as well. But it also kind of, it's a newer area, I think, for UETN, and maybe leads to some conversations around how can UETN continue supporting education on a software licensing front. So those are kind of some general areas. There's also a request for telehealth, a much smaller one, but with that, Laura, did I leave any details out? Again, these are very general overview areas. But at least wanted to get those in front of you. We'll be talking with our board next week about these as well, primarily as a way to let them know, and then to start conversations with legislators and others going down over the next few months. But with that, happy to take questions or even insights or suggestions on those.
Yeah, since this is the early, if they're, you know, thinking of your, you know, constituent groups and that you represent, are there things that we should be, that you would like us to take back to the board for them to also consider as a part of their discussion next week when they will bring this up at their board meeting?
Some gripping stuff.
Yeah.
Budget.
Well, you know, it's interesting that the ARPA funding has taken, you know, has taken so long. Yeah. And I know that, you know, it just ties our hands a little bit, you know, we were hoping to have that funding, you know, to help, I think, with a lot of the summer projects, but I guess those will have to be deferred into fall and winter projects on top of everything else it typically does.
Yeah, I don't think we're alone. I think there's a lot of state entities awaiting what the next steps are. So,
and you know, from my perspective, I really do, as you talked about growth and operations, you know, and I you know, seen, you know, we've been told sort of both ways. No, this is really a one-time thing, but it's really an ongoing thing, and it's an ongoing thing, but it's not really an ongoing thing. And I think about every variant in that, but I think one thing that we do know is that education would be severely hampered in the state if UEN was not there. So I think it's time to just recognize that this is a key element and should be, and really, you know, it would take a lot off of, you know, being able to really working on improving instead of just trying to always come up with just trying to maintain. So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
there's a real difference there. So any other thoughts that you would like to
This
to
is
share?
Laura. I'll just add that it's early days yet on this, and so we'll bring this back to the council when things get a little more firmed up. And of course, the board will make the final decision on the priorities. But this is not the last time we'll have a conversation about the FY24 request.
Oh, yes. It should be on it'll be on all of our agendas through the rest of the year. Well, thank you, Spencer, for just giving us some highlights of some of the the big buckets and what you're thinking in that. And with that, we'll move into our next discussion item, which is the Communities of Utah Resources. And Lisa Coney is going to facilitate this discussion.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. And for those of you who don't know, my role at UEN is the Community Partnerships Manager. And what we're going to talk about today is kind of really just the pinnacle and just covers everything that I do. And so it's exciting. About almost exactly a year ago, I spoke with all of you to update you on what we were doing with the educational resource page, uen.org/American Indian. And that has been such a success that the other groups, identity groups and partners have really taken hold and are using that as a template for a lot of the work that's been going on in the community. And just to give you a little bit of brief background, we were approached by the BYU Arts Partnership, who'd been working with tribes, and they really created some beautiful lesson plans regarding Native American heritage and some nice resources. And they approached us to put this on our page, but those discussions led to a need that we really needed to update our resource page, give it a big refresh. And that led to a full redesign, which also led to some other projects that were going on in the background, like Utah Division of Multicultural Affairs and Utah Division of State History. They were all working along with Utah Humanities on a project, different projects, but similar to the One Utah Many Stories project. And everybody was looking for this educational repository. And so there we were to say, we should not be all recreating the wheel. Here we are. Now we've got this great template. And so people jumped on board. And way back at the time when we were developing this, we did a little survey with social studies teachers. And they were really craving an authentic, current, accurate voice where they could go to get trusted materials. So because they were nervous. So with that, we created this format that you hopefully you're all looking at, and compiled some quality resources. We worked with partners, we worked with Indigenous stakeholders and the tribes themselves. And from that feedback, we really feel like we met that goal to amplify the Indigenous voice for educators with really relevant and accurate resources. So with the success from that project, we continued with other identity groups. The Latinx group has taken hold. They are going to be ready with publishing all of their resources at the end of next month. We're really excited about that, and where the uen.org/American Indian page worked with tribes. The Latinx group has taken that section and they want to do terminology. So what is Latina? What is the description of Latinx? What is Hispanic, Chicano, Mestizo, all of those sorts of things. And then the next section will be educational resources. And they've developed, they're working with the group Born from Corn and I wish I had better language skills, but Born from Corn is from the Artes de Mexico in Utah. And then there's going to be a K-8 curriculum developed by a local teacher and Utah Humanities, as well as pretty exciting that in Provo High School, Chicano Studies curriculum, a teacher there has been given the green light by his school to develop a curriculum for a semester-long course, and he's going to be sharing that on the resource page too. So it's all really exciting. It's also really complex, like all of those communities. So synthesizing, connecting, and producing all of this content in all the different areas is moving at a different pace, some a little faster than others. We'll keep you posted, but I did want to ask you a few things if you could advise us as we go forward on what you think would be helpful for the K-12 and the higher ed communities, looking for ideas on how to promote and reach out to different organizations that you may be involved with. And also, if you have some additional ideas for different communities that we might not be reaching, or ideas to serve the community better. So I am open for feedback and information. Don't all speak at once. It's hard to hear.
It's Laura. I was wondering, because I think this may seem like a very K-12 type project, but could you also mention the work that you've been doing with all the higher ed institutions with film screenings to kind of tie this all in with higher ed?
Sure. And I will be connecting with several of you on the board because for years we've been promoting broadcast through a Native American Film Festival. And that's kind of how a lot of these relationships developed. I've been working closely with almost every higher ed institution across the state, except for the private schools. But BYU came to us with that project. But we've been sharing our Indigenous content through the broadcast channel FNX, or what we're doing locally on 9.1. And I had been visiting all the schools and making relationships that way. And this year we've got a really young group in the equity and diversity offices. And we've been meeting since April, talking about the upcoming year. And they were very excited, and Uetn came also on board. We are going to be doing a total interactive hybrid using Zoom events with the help of UEN down with James Hodges. It's really helping us put this together. It's going to be like a conference that people have never seen before. We're tying in a book. Every single higher ed institution is participating. So we're all promoting the reading of a couple of books and then watching the films. We've licensed 2 films that are directed at higher ed. They're not going to be on broadcast, like I mentioned before. It's for an older audience, some more sensitive subjects. And then each school is going to either show the films, but they'll also be responsible for having a session to discuss the content. And it will all be interactive, broadcast over each one of the schools. And it's pretty exciting. It's coming together, and the whole format should be ready to go by September 1st. So we've been working hard and connecting all of that work with higher ed.
Can I ask a question? I know libraries, like our library, has created what we call a research guide to help guide students who are studying that. We have one on Native American studies. That might be something that you could get from the UALC schools to include as well for anyone, especially in higher ed, to be able to have access to resources to support research or to help guide to find additional information as well. Just as an example, I'm going to put the link for ours in the chat there for you.
Fabulous. Thank you. Absolutely.
So Lisa, is the idea, because in looking at the flow chart and that you've got the other identity groups and that, will you be creating similar web pages like you have for the Native American or the American Indian resources?
Exactly.
Page for
Yep. Latinx is next online in September. And then the other groups, like I said, it's pretty complex. Asian American, like how do you define that? And we are working really hard with some good folks. And I should also mention that higher ed folks are on those working groups to help us really identify the best resources. Leslie, what you provided, that is going to be fantastic. And probably there are, maybe I'll reach out, but there's probably for each one of these groups, there might be similar study guides that we could work from and add. That would be great. But yes, that is the plan with these additional groups coming on board.
I've just been looking through the American Indian resources. It's extensive what you've done.
And
there's a lot of great resources that have been identified.
Thank you, Rick. It's also really pared down too. Actually, it's been a lot of weeding and working with not only Robert Austin, and actually, I don't know if USBE, maybe Rick, if there's the new ethnic studies curriculum director, but that person will be key as we go forward to bring on board along with Robert at USBE.
I wasn't aware of that position, so that's but then that's not surprising.
So hopefully that person will be announced shortly. I know they were doing interviews last week. So
great. Any other feedback for Lisa? I really appreciate all the work that's been going on, and it takes a lot of guidance to make it happen. So,
and I do really want to acknowledge Jessica Anderson on our team. She's just phenomenal. She's the web designer. We feed the content and she makes it, she somehow gets in my brain and makes it all look pretty, and it's just fantastic. And there is a little spot on that page. If you do have ideas like Leslie, put that in there. Give us guidance. We're really open for that and taking feedback regularly. So thank you. And always feel free to email me or reach out to resources at UEN. If it has to do with this kind of stuff, it tends to get back to me. And also with the upcoming film festival, it's going to be on Indigenous Peoples Day, October 10th. Actually, we're not doing the same thing that we've been doing in November, but I do want to also recognize Mark and his work with the graphic design for all of that. So it's really almost all facets of UETN are coming together for these projects. So it's helpful, it's exciting, and would love any additional feedback.
And you can always just send directly to Lisa if you have anything. So, well, thank you, Lisa. Appreciate the update on these Community of Utah resources pages, and look forward to seeing the new ones as they become available. I think it's going to be very helpful. And that our next item is UETM board retreat, and I'm assuming that's either Spencer or Lara.
You want me to take this, Lara? Okay. So there, I think you know, or if you don't know, there's a board retreat. I want to make sure I get the date correct. October 14th. I think it's before COVID. This was traditionally an annual event, as I understand it, but it hasn't happened for a couple of years. So it was scheduled for next week, and I guess because of a new person coming in and other things, it felt a little bit easier to do in October. Laura, at the risk of maybe getting in trouble if there's revisions to an agenda, but I may, if it's okay, I may share what we're maybe have brainstormed most recently in terms of a format. And if you all have any thoughts or suggestions, we'd love to hear them. But the plan right now is in the morning to have the UETN board meet. And at least as some of us as staff, as we've initially started talking, we'd like to cover a couple of things at a big picture level. There's a significant amount of turnover in in the board membership, and so we feel like this may be a good opportunity to reacquaint the board with UETN's overall services, and primarily to kind of ensure that everyone's at a same level of understanding of the various services that UETN does provide, everything on the infrastructure side, and then telehealth, and then of course in educational services, especially over the last 2 years as they've kind of evolved quite a bit as a result of COVID. We hope that'll be an interactive experience too. We also want to talk a little more formally about the board's role and what statute talks about, and the difference really between the board and the councils and some of those formalities. Also to kind of open the discussion up to see if there are any potential changes, or to entertain that a little bit. And then the third component of that morning session would be just to review the UETN strategic plan, and try to, I guess, push the questions a little bit if the strategic plan is still aligned well, if there are some iterative changes, are there some more broad changes that should be considered, knowing where the trends are starting to go, just to kind of start that question. And then at noon, we hope to get together with you all, with the advisory councils, to have lunch and to kind of revisit some of those conversations. For example, to have maybe an additional activity or repeat the activity the board did in the morning around UETN services, but hopefully in a way also to get some added, more broad feedback from the advisory councils. With that, we want to also do some EDIA, I guess have EDIA discussion and maybe a little bit of training in the UETN context. Lara's team, there's a group that's, well, not just Lara, but there's a number of people in UETN that have been working very hard on this. And I think the conversation we want to drive towards is how do we operationalize a lot of the concepts and goals that we've talked about. And then from there, again, to go back to our strategic plan with all the advisory councils at a very high level. Really, again, for me as a new director, and maybe it's selfish, but I am kind of curious, knowing where the current strategic plan is for UETN, where we are sort of over the last 2 to 5 years, and really what the future trends are. I think everyone in this group has some sense of the fast evolving dynamics in education, not just policy-wise, but electronically, but also even politically. I think these are all considerations we need to kind of be aware of. And so that's a very high-level run at the retreat, but we're hoping it's an opportunity to kind of take what we have, take what's currently going on, step back a little bit, and most importantly, get some of your feedback. So, Lara, did I misspeak, or Kelly, or anybody else?
It's super clear. So for all of you on the council, if you'll just keep from lunchtime to the afternoon open, and then as we refine the agenda, we'll be sure and communicate that out with all of you. I'm sure that this will be in Salt Lake, and I can't guarantee, but we'll probably have a distance option for those of you that aren't comfortable getting all together or aren't able to.
Okay. Will this have any impact on our October meeting? Are we going to?
I was going to ask you and Leslie about that if you want to have a meeting before it. So it's scheduled to be a week before the retreat. If you want to do that, or if you want to wait and decide later, it's really up to you and Leslie.
Okay.
If I can, Rick, if I can just throw out, there may be 2 or 3 maybe pre-work assignments that we may throw out, and so I would say don't jump to cancel quite yet, because that may be an opportunity to tee up the retreat.
If there's going to be some pre-work assignments, so we would want to do those. We'll take advantage of the time that's already scheduled on October 7th. So
very heavy work, I'm sure.
Yeah, got it. So okay, that sort of takes care of 4.1. Our next meeting will be on October 7th, unless we deem it change deems to change it at at a later date. But right now we'll continue. We will meet on October 7th, and then do keep October 14th from noon through probably around about 4 o'clock, I would think. So for the UEN board retreat at a location yet to be determined. So and that I appreciate that. We're going to move into just some committee reports, and that is there anything from the USHE TTC, the USHE Teaching and Technologies Council, that we'd like to bring forward? You've had a meeting and you'd like to.
Jason would probably be the best person to report on that. And I see he's off camera, so we may need to come back to Jason.
Okay. Clint, anything from C-Forum that you want to share?
Just starting to get the schedule for this year built. SEDC in Washington County School District kind of got that ball rolling and took dibs on February 3rd. So it'll be C-Forum in St. George in February, and then an Ed Camp put together by USET the day after. We're still working on what school that's going to be at. And then the rest of the schedule for the other months is being put together as we speak. So that's about it.
Okay. And this is I was in with Clint last week at the USET. And we were talking a little bit about C-Forum and how it really had a membership probably around 30 or 40, people on that for many, many years, and now it's like doubled at their meetings. It's been as districts and that have added coaching and mentoring into their the way they do things, and this has been a great resource for them. Leslie, I think this would be you, the Utah Academic Library Consortium.
It would be just a couple of things. We're starting to look at our requests that we'll be putting into the USHE budget. It's that time of year, I guess, for everybody. So just a couple of things I just wanted to pass along, just things that we're requesting that may be of interest. One is just our resources, of course, have that inflationary costs like everything else. And so that's going to be something that we're continuing to try to educate and to maintain the level of support for our libraries that we have. And so that's something that will be a topic. Where the crossover is with UEN, I think, is one of the things that we're looking at is a way to promote and enhance OER. And I think that there's a lot of cooperation that we could do, and you've got some infrastructure in place already. And so I'm not sure how to facilitate that, how we can, I know the Pressbook thing. I haven't been involved with that at all, but if you have any suggestions or ideas on ways that we could work together, Laura, please let me know, and I'm happy to take it to our group or put you in touch with our chair this year, who's Emily Swanson at Westminster. So. And then we're also investigating having a shared catalog with all of our libraries. It's something that we tried before, and we're investigating that again. But we'll see if that comes about. And that's it for UALC.
Thank you, Leslie. I was on mute. Is that a surprise or what? So, appreciate the update in that. Scott, anything from the Technology Coordinators Council?
You know, the one thing that I would bring up is on June 27th, we lost a great leader, a great friend, and even a better person in Robert Potts. Most of us knew him as Bob Potts. Bob is still an inspiration to me. He performed his job and leadership in a way that I can only aspire to. Really just a tremendous loss for this state and really technology leadership in losing him. So my heart goes out to him, his family, and you know, everyone close to him who will experience that loss.
Thank you, Scott, and I echo that.
Thanks to everyone from UETN who stepped up and came through and came down to Rural Schools Conference and help us pull it off. He was a huge driver of that conference, and you know, we lost him a couple days before it started, so it was a huge help, and we appreciate the effort and the everything. Thanks, everybody.
If it's any testament to the work that he did, it took about a half a dozen or so of all of us to be able to fill in what Robert would do by himself. So, we do miss him. So, anything state libraries, and Marie, you are with us.
Yeah.
Your audio seems to be breaking up. I don't think your microphone is working. At least I'm not hearing anything, so.
Rick, it's while Marie's working on that, I saw also that Jason has come back and he could do the UTTC report if that helps.
Okay. Jason, we'll take the UTC and then Marie will let you work on your sound issue there.
Thank you. Sorry, my trackpad battery died and I'm like trying to click on it. And I'm like, can't really do anything if my trackpad doesn't work. Anyways, so yeah, we met last week at UVU in person. It's our first in-person meeting in over 2 years. So it was good to get back with many of our colleagues together. And one of the biggest things we discussed was something I mentioned in the last meeting, the use of Proctorio and proctoring services in general, and how we can try to rein in those costs. For UVU and a couple of other institutions, the cost of Proctorio is approaching the equivalent cost that the institutions are expected to pay for Canvas by itself. And so it's quite a large expense that isn't sustainable at the way we've had to use it for the pandemic. And so we did some brainstorming there. One of the biggest things was promoting it less in in-person classes and more in remote or online classes, if possible. And we have some more details we're trying to work out there. we talked a lot about Instructure and some of the new tools that Instructure has recently purchased, such as Badger, the digital credentialing tool for like digital badges, and their new mastery paths and so forth. Jen Mager's been terrific at identifying other opportunities for us as far as technologies to use in the classroom and online. And so she created a list of items that we're going to try to take a look at this in the next few months. And then our next scheduled online meeting is in November. And we'll just meet virtually like normally. I think that's the week after EDUCAUSE is when we're going to try to meet again. And then finally, and then one of the other big things is just to keep this on top of mind is replacement and repair plans for the equipment purchased with CARES and HERF funds. I assume that's been kind of a topic that's starting to crop up among the institutions. How do we maintain that equipment we were given a lot of money to purchase, or do we attempt to, or just run it through its end of life? So those are the biggest topics we brought up.
I think you bring up, Jason, the one that the cliff that is out there that is we seem to be racing towards, because there is a lot of equipment and that was purchased, and we have to start thinking about how we're going to refresh that now, and what and you know, which may lead to some of the budget discussions and things like that, you know, to start having those conversations earlier than later, at least putting things out there on people's radar. Is that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Marie, we'll come back to you and see if you're, or did she?
Okay, we're going to try this one more time. Can you hear me now?
Oh.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. The only thing I think that I thought I'd bring up with this group, and I don't remember if I brought it up in our last meeting, was just a reminder of something that we've been working on with Laura, the major contracts for EBSCO and ProQuest that UALC, UEN, and the State Library share the cost for. Those contracts are up in October 2024 or September 2024. So we've been working with Laura and James Marshall, a consultant, to get ready to do a needs assessment across the state to really kind of figure out what the needs really are for electronic databases and resources. The contracts that we have now are 10-year contracts, and a lot of things have changed on how people access online resources in the last 8 years. So we want to make sure that we're looking at the right types of resources, and instead of just doing the same thing that we did 8 years ago. So we will be working to get together a needs assessment that we're going to push out to the state, and we'll push out to public libraries, school libraries, as well as academic libraries. So we'll want to get your feedback and your help, and when you see that coming, so just be aware that that's coming. And if you have any ideas or feedback or suggestions on what you'd like to see, please make that clear when you see the survey. That's all I have for today. Did I get that right, Laura? Did I miss anything? Okay.
Thank you, Marie. Do appreciate that. And that will lead us into, so that concludes our committee reports. That leads us into just our roundtable discussion and open things that we can be bringing up. And I know we're going to start first with Rich Finlinson. He asked for some time to be able to share a little bit about the UEN logo, and we'll turn the time to you.
Thank you. I'll share my screen. There we go. So thank you to all of you who participated in a survey that we sent out. We sent out a survey to 3 groups, and you were one of them. And we asked you to rate these 4 options. So the number 1 called Connected Utah, the number 2 called the UEN and UTN merge, and our current logo. And thanks to Denise Elwood, she suggested we should also have an option for none of the above. So we put that on the survey as well. And so here are the results. We talked to telehealth, but here are the results from 13 of you who responded from the Advisory Council for Education Services. And as you can see, 61.5% said that the number one option was their favorite. And you wonder, well, is this group different? Is this group, is this vote unique from how other groups who are not necessarily coming from the same point of view, is it a consistent vote? Well, let's go up here to, we had 5 responses from our telehealth advisory council, and 80% liked the number one logo. So let's go down and get a much larger number of respondents. The third group that we sent this out to was the UEN staff, and we had a total of 80 responses there. And as you can see, once again, the number one option came in with the majority of the vote at 63.7%. So the clear winner across 3 different groups is that logo. And with saying that, I'd like to just open this up to discussion and see what live interactive discussion we might have with this group about why you chose the logo you chose. And so please jump in and help us get some advisory council advice on a possible logo choice.
I think you just spoke a little bit more to what the goal and the mission of UETN is, just to help connect Utah.
As one that had my second choice was option 1, not my I actually chose number 2, but I just liked it because it just seemed to focus you a little, but I'm fine. I would be fine with I would be fine with either. Rich, you might want to tell them a little bit to some of the, because you were talking to me yesterday a little bit about the color scheme of the option 1. I thought it was rather interesting.
Yes, as we considered color schemes with various groups, we had a suggestion to emulate the beautiful blue sky of Utah and the red rock of southern Utah, and also the deep red of a sunset in Utah. And so that's how we came up with those 3 colors, for some blue sky, some red rock, to acknowledge kind of the northern and southern parts of the state.
I like that explanation, Rich, because the only reason option number 1 was my second choice was I just happened to be working on accessibility and visual design, and red is one that is kind of a no-go in some cases for those who have color blindness, but that was the only reason. Then and option 2 was like moving from your old color scheme to a new color scheme, so it was kind of like a transitionary stage. And so I was looking at, that's why I voted the way I did, but I really do like option number 1. It was just the red did catch my attention on that one.
Oh, thanks for that input.
Other input.
Oh, sorry. I chose number 1 as my first choice, but I actually prefer the coloring of option 2. I mean, I like the shape of the state, the lines that seem to imply connectivity, but I like the coloring of the second one a little bit better than I like the light blue and the orange. But I get the symbolism, but I like the colors better in the second one.
Coloring of number 2 with design of number 1, right?
Yeah.
I'm making a note. Again, we're still in process here, so this feedback is very valuable to us.
It feels like you could use the logo, the Utah state icon as an icon by itself as well. Just, you know, sometimes they, like Canvas, for example, has just their circle thing that they put on stuff for some things, and then they leave the canvas by structure off of it. So it feels like you could do that with that one pretty easily. With number one, it for some materials, not all materials.
Rich, I'll mention, I am colorblind in both red, green, and yellow, blue. And I appreciated the discussion of the color scheme of number one. One was my first choice, but I will tell you, I can't tell what the colors are. So I am challenged by the coloring scheme.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate your disclosing that to us and telling us how you perceived it, even though that was your number one vote. Most helpful.
I will also mention, coming from a colorblind person, I did recognize, I may not be able to tell you what the colors are, but I did recognize the option 2 was a transition from your current logo, and so could recognize the colors moving from your current logo to option 2, and did appreciate that. So the one thing I did really like about 2 is the color scheme.
Thank you. Well, Rick, this has been some very helpful feedback, and we appreciate everyone who contributed to this actual survey. Unless there are other comments, I certainly welcome them, but I can stop sharing my screen and turn the time back over to you.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you all for your input on the search for the new logo and that. Any other items that anybody would like to bring up for roundtable? Anything that you would like to share that you've been doing, or you'd like others to know about? Things that you would like to see UEN's assistance with? Sort of that open time frame. So I'll just let you share what you have. If there's any questions or things you'd like to share. Well, hearing.
Well, I got one quick thing. I was working with
Thanks, Diana.
I'm working with the Utah Debate Commission, and we have some educational materials. It's a nonprofit, nonpartisan that sponsors statewide debates. And we were thinking about some things we could do and maybe share with teachers and school students. And the first thing was, well, how are we going to get it out? And then people just go, well, there's no question. We're going to Uetm. That's how we're going to talk to teachers and educators. So I like that. And Laura was very nice, and Lisa's been terrific. So we appreciate their help. But for this group, I just loved it. That was just, one stop. People right there recognize this is the source that Utah educators go to for high quality materials.
It is, and I'll just share that with the work at the State Board of Education, we started with the science team and working with Katie and some of her team with using eMedia and the hubs that we were creating, and there were some other projects that we're thinking about, and it was just sort of a quick consensus that we'll just go back and do more work with UEN. So it's taken me a long time to get that to get that mindset, because everybody thought, well, maybe we got to put things at the State Board of Education website, but we ran a statistical analysis, and we had like 300. I don't know. It was in the hundreds of hits that hit the USBE website for resources, and it was about 30,000 or something. Some crazy number that went to UEN. So at that point, the data was sort of, this is where teachers are going, which is good. Anything else for roundtable items? Of note, hearing none, then of note, just note that there is a few new videos that have been put out. Anything that you wanted to add, share on any of these, Laura?
Oh, thanks. Well, the team is amazing. So it's always hard to choose a couple to highlight. You can go to our YouTube channel to see many, many more, and the podcasts that are on our professional development site. The two videos that we chose to feature this time, one is in our Humans of UETN series that features one of the longtime employees of our organization. So I think you'll enjoy that story. And then the second is a feature of an art exhibit that's in Moab. And frankly, I think the team just wanted a really good reason to go to Moab, which is always good. But the video is really nice. I think you'll enjoy it. Oh, and sorry, one more thing. That video is part of the Art Connection series. So we submit that to other public television stations. And then if it's selected, it airs in 300 different markets across the country. So that's awesome.
That is good. Well, we'll let you take advantage of that. The last 20 minutes that we're going to give back to you for the day. Maybe you can watch those two videos. And are there any other items that anyone would like to bring to the advisory council today? Any final thoughts, Spencer, on your first advisory council?
No, I'm just
not to put you on the spot or anything.
No problem at all. Just happy to be along for the ride. I love these items are interesting to me, and I think it's really cool to see these state level kind of reach partnerships, and that's why I guess that's why I like UETN. I'm a little biased, but I just like that state purview into what you're all doing at a local level. So thank you.
Well, thank you all for joining with us today. Unless there's something else, our next meeting will be on Friday, October 7th. Virtual, it'll be in this format again, and we'll see you then, and then look forward to seeing you all in person, hopefully at the board retreat on October 14th. And thank you all. Have a good rest of the day and have a good month of August.
Thanks. See ya.